Forbes India presents AWS The Mavericks in association with Ivy Cap Ventures.
The Mavericks is an initiative of Forbes India and AWS that provides a forum to founders, CTOs, CXOs of India's biggest startups, digital native businesses, unicorns and soonicorns. This is to discuss the role of cutting-edge technology in driving business growth and innovation, with an aim to set examples for the industry to follow. The new season of the Mavericks is being kicked off with this gaming convention in Bangalore with a gathering of some of the biggest leaders and key stakeholders from the Indian gaming sector. The convention aims to not only map the trends, challenges and sector's future, but also help understand what sets these leaders apart when it comes to innovation. These conversations will dive deep into technology play and discuss how digital native businesses or DNBs are leveraging cutting-edge technology to stay ahead of the curve. Ladies and gentlemen, let me quickly go through some statistics related to the gaming industry in India. The industry has always been at the forefront of innovation and is one of the fastest growing sunrise industries in India, expected to clock in $3.9 billion by 2025, according to an Ernst & Young report. The Indian gaming industry recently overtook the US with 300 million users, and mobile phone users dominate the Indian gaming industry with phone-based apps accounting for about 86% of the total gaming apps in 2021. As gaming becomes increasingly sophisticated and consumer expectations soar, the sector is looking for more and effective ways to optimize and personalize the experience for their users, as well as new monetization opportunities for their products. We'll shortly begin, and a quick note to all our guests and viewers, kindly use the hashtag the Mavericks for, when you're posting updates on social media. So without any further ado, let me invite on stage Brian Carvalho, editor of Forbes India, to set the context for this evening.
So good evening and welcome everybody to the AWS Mavericks Gaming Convention presented by Forbes India. It is indeed a pleasure to be here in Bangalore this evening to delve into a sector that had, according to one recent report, captured the imagination of some 420 million Indians in fiscal year 2021. And these are only casual gamers that I'm talking about. Add fantasy sports and you have another 130 to 150 million. And then there's esports, which had some 1.5 lakh players and 17 million viewers. These are incredible numbers that are growing rapidly year on year. And these are huge markets. Fantasy esports itself is estimated to be worth 34,000 crore rupees and is projected to hit 1,65,000 crore by fiscal year 25. Okay, I'll stop with the numbers here. Suffice it to say that sports tech, as some of the startups in this sector refer to it, is one of the fastest growing businesses that has attracted huge amounts of capital and created a number of unicorns. We are here today to dive into the various elements of gaming: casual gaming, game streaming, esports, NFT and blockchain-based gaming, and of course, fantasy games and sports. And we will also discuss what lies ahead for these gaming segments, not just in terms of opportunity, but also the challenges, like regulation, for instance. I won't take any more of your time. Let's head straight into the lineup for the evening. And I hope you find these conversations stimulating and inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Ladies and gentlemen, moving on. The first session of the evening promises to provide a focused, rounded, and in-depth perspective into what it takes to be an entrepreneur in the gaming sector. The power-packed session will be truly a treasure trove for knowledge for younglings and will serve as guideposts for those seeking answers to maneuver into this super competitive sector. I request Brian Carvalho, editor of Forbes India, to come back on stage to moderate this session. Let me also please invite on stage Bhavin Pandya, founder and CEO, Games24X7, and Neeraj Matiyani, head, Digital Native Business at AWS India, for a conversation on the journey of an entrepreneur, which will unpack business models, pivots, and vision for the future, and a lot more. Please note there will be an open house for 10 minutes at the end of the panel, which will allow you, the audience, to ask questions to the panelists. Those of you who have joined us virtually, please send across questions through the platform. Over to you, Brian.
Thank you, Naini. Thanks, Bhavin, and thanks, Neeraj, for agreeing to do this.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks for having us.
Am I audible enough? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, great. Okay, Bhavin, let's begin with you and begin where the journey began. And it seems like a long time ago in 2006, right? I mean, and that's when you got into online casual gaming with chess and rummy, right? What was your thinking at that time, and what was the reaction to such a foray in 2006? Hey.
Thank you once again, Brian, for having me. And to start with, I want to first share that yesterday, June 13th, 2006, is 16 years ago when Games24X7 was incorporated. So 16 years ago, yesterday, we incorporated. And so it's been a long journey. And you're right, that we started out in 2006 with the vision of engaging people through games that they've always enjoyed playing. That was really the goal. Some background from maybe a couple of years before that, where it all started. Trivikraman Thampi is my co-founding partner, goes by Thampi or Vikram, and I were getting our PhDs in economics at New York University. And as it turns out, we both realized that we were in the wrong place, as in, we didn't want to get a PhD, but what do you do now? You're in the program, you're in New York City, most importantly, right? And we're young, the mind wanders, there's enough and more distractions, early 2000s, right? So we're trying to sort of figure out what to do. Both of us played games. We, in fact, met in a computer lab in the economics department playing computer games, right? That's how we met. And so as we were spending more time playing games and less time worrying about economics, we thought about why not, see if there is an opportunity to do something in India. So that's how it all really started. In fact, when I came down to India, it was fairly challenging because the BPO sector was doing really well at the time, right? People who were freshly graduating from colleges would go into these air-conditioned offices. They would have like pickups and drops to sort of pick them up and drop them off. And that we couldn't compete. We were a startup. We were working out of a basement in my ancestral home in Mumbai. A funny anecdote I'll share with all of you. I came down to India and someone asked me, Bhavin, what are you up to? What are you going to do? And I said, oh, I'm working on a startup. And their instinctive response was, start what? The word startup wasn't known back in 2006, right? That's how. So we thought we were slightly ahead of our time almost, right? Building a team was hard because people were working with BPOs and multinational companies at that time. It's not until the early 2010s, right, that you actually had, Flipkarts and the success stories of the like, that people started to begin to recognize what startups are and that, started looking at that as a viable option. So building a team was obviously very hard. I personally would cold call people to say, come and join us. And obviously everyone would, a lot of people would, first no one would entertain my call. If they would, they'd then not want to interview with us. Let's say they made it through the interview and then they said, okay, we'll join, but they wouldn't come. You would also have some people who would come and then the second day disappear. You would hear all kinds of excuses. You would hear like, oh, I'm scared of getting onto a train, so I can't come to your office, so I'm not going to come to Bombay. And so it was tough to build a team, but we persisted. And in 2008 is when we launched Rummy and Carom. Initially just as casual games to play for free, but from the very beginning we were clear that because in law there is a distinction between games of skill and games of chance, you can actually offer games of skill for money. And that was really the thesis even back in 2005-06 as we were thinking through this. But as we came down to India, we realized that it was not that straightforward, right? Getting a payment gateway was hard, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But the initial journey was tough because people didn't know what startups were. Building a team was hard. But eventually we went live with Rummy and Carom in 2008. Obviously, at the time we used to run very small tournaments, like 8 to 16 player tournaments, right? And even there, I would have to call players, like call people I know, Kiya, join kar lo, I'll give you like 5,000 rupees if you win the tournament, right? And still people wouldn't join, right? To now we run tournaments that have lakhs of players and they get filled in like a matter of minutes, right? So it's been a long journey, but it's been fulfilling.
Yeah, and as of starting up in this sector wasn't crazy enough, you actually went for paying subscribers 2 years later, right? I mean,
Yeah.
what was the response then?
Yes, that's another very interesting story. So when in 2008 we said, okay, we'll go live, and then in 2009 is when we actually went live for money, you obviously needed a payment gateway, right? You're an online product, you're on the internet, you're not going to have cash on delivery or go to people's homes to collect money. They will have to pay online, right? And so we approached a few payment gateways, and they of course didn't understand. Their first instinct was that, look, there is money here and there's cards here, so this must be gambling, right? So we had to first change that perception. Talk about games of skill, talk about the Supreme Court judgments. Not going to bore you with any of those details, but eventually we got a payment gateway from CC Avenue, but it was very restrictive. They weren't offering, a MasterCard or some of the other forms of electronic payments, for which we had to approach HDFC Bank. Now, HDFC Bank did a 9-month due diligence on us, right? They took us, obviously they got permissions from the RBI, they took us through their audit teams, their legal and compliance teams, and finally we got a payment gateway. But that's not the part that's surprising. We eventually got the payment gateway. What really shocks me and people is that, is that when they first onboarded us to say, okay, we will provide you a payment gateway, they said, we're taking a risk because we don't know who you are, so we'll provide you a payment gateway, but we'll have to charge you a slightly higher TDR, which is transaction discount rate, which is the money that the payment gateway will take for processing the payment. So if you pay 100 rupees, then the TDR is maybe 1 or 2 rupees, some percentage points that the payment gateway will pay to offer the service. So, see, they said it'd be slightly higher, so I thought it'd be 3, 4, maybe 5%, right? That's okay. Then he came back with the first contract. He said, here it is, it's about, 12%. So out of every 100 rupees, 12 rupees you would have to give to the payment gateway, right? And so put in from our pockets. But as they say, beggars can't be choosers. We had to sign it, we had to do what we had to do, and from 12 now we're at 2, but it was a challenge, but once we got the payment gateways, things really took off in a major way for us.
Sure. Great. Let me get Neeraj into the conversation here, and let's fast forward to the current situation where the gaming sector seems ripe for a breakout with so many business models and startups emerging, right? So what is the role AWS is playing in building these startups and helping them scale up?
So before that, I would really like to tell what we observe by all the work done by Bhavin in terms of establishing the industry,
Right.
in terms of all the leaders here who are present, and they have taken the industry to the extent that now the focus is all on the gamer, how to give them better experience, how to help them earn money, and how to keep the whole thing secure. So, we are seeing trends, right? And the maturity of the industry is such that we are seeing increased propensity of our Indian gamers to pay, right? To pay more and to pay at all in terms of the gaming, when they start gaming, right? So that leads to a good cycle, right? Because if you pay and the whole industry develops, you can build better games, and the whole cycle starts happening there. The second thing we see is that the popularity of esports and players turning professional, right? Now again, when there is a living to be earned by playing games, you have people turning professional, and because of that, the tournaments, the viewership, and the content available in esports becomes so much better that you find more and more people interested in becoming gamers and becoming professional. Like, when we had IPL, the standard of cricket and the number of players which came up completely changed. Right. And the lastest emergence, and I'm sure Bhavin knows this so much better than us, is the emergence of Web3 technologies, in metaverse, in NFT, which lead to better experiences and which lead to avenues for earning for gaming companies as well as for players, again leading to the whole cycle of better players and better games, right? And finally, we see that with cloud and 5G, we will find that titles which are AAA, which are high quality you have to pay a lot and you really enjoy that. That being easily available on mobiles as compared to just using PCs and consoles, right? So that's leading to the entire development of the industry. Now what we do as AWS is, number one, when you look at our customers, we help them build and run on AWS, right? So the infrastructure that we provide is highly scalable, reliable, and gaming is unique, right? Because when we have events, like an IPL event or say a metaverse event or new game launch, we see scales 30x, 40x or even higher. So not only do we help our customers maintain the fantastic user experience that they want to give, but also manage it by scaling up and scaling down as far as their gaming experience is concerned. I have more to add, but let's get on to the discussion. We'll discuss more about it.
Sure. Okay. Bhavin, coming back to your journey, today, of course, we're seeing, the industry is flush with money. There are unicorns being created. But what was your initial attempts at getting venture capital, right? And what were the experiences like in the 2000s, right?
So thanks again, Brian, for that question. So yes, when we were starting out, raising money was obviously hard. We first sort of went to the Indus Entrepreneurs TIE, which is where we in the US, to try and raise some funds. We raised a very little bit from some angel investors, friends and family, that enabled me to sort of come to India and set up the team and start doing things. But we really got serious as we were getting serious in 2008. Let's not forget that that's exactly where the subprime mortgage crisis happened in the US. The whole US economy and financial system was on its knees, really, right? No one was obviously investing in anyone at that time. But our angel investors, they showed confidence in us. They said, our money is safe here. So they invested a little bit of money. But as we started growing, in 2009, 10, we needed to raise more money. And those were very challenging times, especially because of what you said, that gaming was not very known. A lot of people were very skeptical about especially real money games, right? And obviously games of skill, so you can play for real money. So people didn't know all of these things. We were talking to one venture capital firm, and they sort of gave us, we were in the process of sort of receiving a term sheet from them, and we saw what that term sheet or contract would look like, and it was very scary. Both Thampi and I are first-time entrepreneurs. We've never done this before, and so the kind of clauses you have in there can be daunting. And as we're speaking to them, through an angel investor, we meet another gentleman from a fund, and he says, "Look, I'm very interested in your model. I'm willing to invest money right now, but I will take common stock. I will not take any preferred or any of that, preferred stock or any of that." And we're like, "But you'll do your due diligence. It will take a long time. We're already in talks with someone else. So how does this play out?" So he said, to show you that I'm serious, why don't you send me your bank account number, and in a couple of days I'll wire $1 million, right? And $1 million is a lot of money. It is now, and it was back then, definitely, right? And we called his bluff. We were like, this guy can't be serious, right? And we said, okay, this is our account number. And lo and behold, 2 days later, there were $1 million in the account. And that's how we actually raised our first set of funds. Obviously, he did the due diligence then, and then we got the rest of the funds and so on and so forth. But that's how it all really started.
And you did say that getting the payment gateways on board was one of those game-changing moments for you.
Yes.
Right. So if you look back, could you kind of identify 2 or 3 of these tipping points that you reached, which really, convinced you that, okay, there's no going back from here now?
Yes, absolutely. The first and foremost was obviously the payment gateway. Like, if we had not had a payment gateway, there was nothing else. It was game over on day one. The second one was advertising. Right, as much as it is easy to advertise now and on various platforms, right, various ad networks, various affiliates will help you and so on and so forth. Back then you had Google and Facebook maybe a little bit, but mostly Google, right? And so we went to Google to say that, look, we need to advertise our product. And first response, obviously, like with everyone else, was no, you can't, this is not allowed. But we were fortunate enough to through one of our angel investors, also know someone in the US, in in Mountain View, who was in the Google's compliance team. We explained everything to them, and they actually changed their policy for us to allow games of skill to operate, and that's how we were able to get Google. And once we got Google, we went to Facebook and said that, look, Google is doing it, there is no reason for you to not do it, and so they agreed, and so that's how we opened up Google and Facebook. That was one changing moment, one tipping point, obviously, for us. The other one was how mobile phones took off in a very big way, but more importantly, very suddenly. Right? So I remember being in a board meeting, and this is about a month after we had launched our mobile product. One of our board members asked us, so what percentage of your revenue comes from mobile phones? We said about 10-12%. We've gone live maybe a month and a half ago, and he was furious. He was very angry. He's like, no less than 50% of your revenue must come from mobile right now. You're already very late. It is going to be the thing of the future. It is going to happen. You need to invest all your resources on that. And we were slightly taken aback that, look, mobile is just it's just becoming off age in India and coming up now. It will gradually take time, organically it'll grow. But it turns out he was right. In 6 months, 80% of our revenue was coming from mobile phones in the same year, right? So that's how suddenly mobile phones grew in our country and continue to grow now, that they have played a very, very big role in obviously the growth of this industry, but also many other industries.
Sure. Okay. Coming back to Neeraj. Neeraj, could you kind of shed some light on, how you're helping game developers build and grow their games, right? In areas like cloud game management and development or AI/ML.
So let me just cover what we help when companies start or entrepreneurs start building their businesses around gaming, right? Because they are all young folks, entrepreneurs out of college, right? Or have worked for a few years. The first thing we help them is with Activate program, which essentially helps them access credits from AWS as well as AWS partners, so that the initial money that they need to invest in terms of developing the product is taken care of till they access funding, they access, they build their teams, right? So this accelerates their product development. The second thing which is very important for budding entrepreneurs, new companies, and in fact even companies with mature, is giving them the ability to network with peers who have experienced the same challenges, who have gained knowledge through blood and sweat, and we help them access CTOs who have done this before. We help them access experts within AWS. And of course, for business and CEOs who are further down on the road, we help them access mentors who can help them from a business aspect. Like Bhavin was mentioning, a lot of it is technology, a lot of it is hit and trial, but mentors help to compress a lot of that learning. And the third thing we help is with visibility, right? You have a product, you want platforms to come and talk about your product, you want to take part in meets, you want to take part in various industry forums. So we enable that through our forums itself, through third-party forums where we sponsor, so that companies get an opportunity to talk about the good work they're doing, to help and popularize product, to help them, in fact, even attract talent, because the more popular you are, the more visible you are, the better talent you get. And the last thing which is very unique is that they have access not just to the AWS ecosystem in terms of our technologies, our products, but also the rest of Amazon. For example, they can use Amazon Pay to access a new set of consumers which are already using Amazon Pay. Our customers can list themselves on the Amazon Fire TV stick, which will help them play games on large screens, and which anyway is present with thousands of millions of consumers around the world, and they watch it to watch TV, but adding your game and using the controllers which are now available for Amazon TV stick helps them do that. Then of course we have Alexa, which enables them to use voice in their gaming platforms. And lastly, Amazon.in or Amazon.com, they have gaming pages, they have gaming products where these companies can advertise, they can promote their products and get access to the millions of consumers that Amazon has.
Okay, sure. Okay, Bhavin, many of us when we talk about gaming, we look at it as one holistic pie. Well, actually it seems to be pretty diversified, right? You have casual gaming, which you started with. You have fantasy gaming. You have esports. You have game streaming. Which are the areas that you want to play in?
We primarily operate in the skill game space, where we offer games for money. That's our forte. That's something that we've done fairly well over the last few years. We've also made a foray in casual games. So when the mobile phones were taking off in a big way, we launched some free-to-play games on some freemium games actually on the App Store and the Play Store, through our Ultimate Games division, which is now called U Games. And there we launched Ultimate Rummy, Ultimate Teen Pati, but these are all games for free. You don't really play them for money. So casual games is a space that's coming up, but I think it's going to be some time before that takes off in a big way. Because even today in India, right, you have casual players, but you don't have casual payers, right? You don't have people who will pay to play casual games, right? People want to play to win, right? And so that's why skill games are doing fairly well in India. But there are other genres too, fantasy sports, which is also a skill game, and therefore is an online real money game of skill. Rummy. Then there are other games that are also taking off. Now in a big way. There are some studios and companies that are doing multiple games, offering them as games of skill. So that's something that a few folks are doing. Let's say you have esports, like you rightly mentioned, but esports is different from online skill games or online gaming, right? It's an actual sport being recognized by various committees and so on and so forth. And then along with it, you obviously have game streaming. The games that are streamed are some of these esport games. But primarily in India, when we talk of the gaming industry, we talk about the growth of the gaming industry in terms of revenue, in terms of investor interest, in terms of the revenue that we generated for the government, the kind of employment that it generates, right, is all online skill games, online real money games, play to win kind of thing that I think is taking off in a big way.
And I have to ask you this, that you took your time to get into fantasy sports and fantasy gaming, right? You did that only in 2019. So in hindsight, do you think it was a well thought of decision? I think it was, right? I mean.
Oh, absolutely. For us, two things happened along the way. One was very clear from the beginning that, look, as we were doing Rummy, we'd done our due diligence to know that we can do Rummy for money only because it is a game of skill and therefore allowed, 100% legitimate to do in India, right? At that point, we were very clear that we were only going to do things that were entirely white or on the right side of the law, right? We were not going to flirt with the law or do any of that, right? Just not something we were comfortable with. We were risk takers, okay, but we were first-time entrepreneurs. Both Thampi and my parents were working in banks all their lives, have sort of, never taken any meaningful chances. So we were willing to take some chance, but then within reason, right? So we were very sure that we wanted to do things that were on the right side of the law, for sure. And with Rummy, right, despite it being on the right side of the law, we had so many issues that we had to deal with because of perception and so on and so forth, that we just didn't think it was right to launch fantasy sports at the time that some other players entered the market, right? But in 2017, when the Punjab and Haryana High Court ruled that it was a game of skill, that's when we mustered the confidence to say that, okay, now it makes sense to do this. The advantage that we obviously had was that we had the experience from running a game for money over the last so many years, since 2009 to 2019 when we took Fantasy Live. That experience came really handy for us, right? Within about 18 to 20 months of going live, we were already the #2 fantasy sports player, in India. When we came in, there were 100-odd operators that were operating fantasy sports, right? All because we really understood our players. We knew what was the best way to engage them. We worked on our products. We had various fantastic campaigns. Right? One, when we signed on Mr. Saurav Ganguly, we said play with champions, be the expert, and so he was the expert. If you played with him, then and that was really your true test of skill, because Saurav Ganguly was the person who in real life created teams and fielded them day in and day out for so many years, right? That it just sort of was a great product proposition. And then we thought of democratizing fantasy sports. We had, 1 to 1 crore campaign where we brought in Mr. Ranveer Singh and said that, why don't you become our brand ambassador? And then to this time where we said, India's sabse bada first prize in this IPL has been fantastic for us. So we've obviously, we're way behind still, no doubt about that. The industry leader, and look, no doubt about it, fortune favors the brave. There are some gaming companies or some companies that did fantasy sports much before us, and they will enjoy the benefits of that, no doubt about it, right? But as far as we're concerned, we're, India's largest multi-gaming platform, and that's what we will be, where we'll make sure that we have the right kind of engaging games of skill that are going to sort of help us grow our customer base and the engagement.
Sure. Neeraj, a quick word on security. I mean, how do you assuage game developers that, we have it under control?
Yeah, that's a large topic, right, about security, and it's just not gaming, right? It has aspects in all kinds of tech businesses, how secure you keep yourself. Right. So let me just touch upon a few key topics around security, right? From an AWS perspective, the first thing we do is keep ourselves secure, which means the underlying platform, the cloud platform which our customers use, like for gaming. The information, the data there is secure, the infrastructure is secure. And not only that, it's just not about the tech behind it, it's also about following the right processes, following the right compliances, right? While gaming is working on, the industry is working around regulation, but there's a financial aspect to it because they deal with money. So those regulations are clear, how you will handle information about your transaction, how you will meet the various norms set by the regulatory bodies, right? So we get that, we get the tools to make sure that the customers are using them to be compliant, and also the information around it. The second is information safety itself, because gaming companies deal with personal data in terms of who the customers are, and a lot of that is sensitive to them, especially around how they engage, how they interact, how the players are, how the gamers are working, because that really gives them insights into what are the best ways to engage better with their gamers, how do they give better experience to gamers. So that's another piece that we keep safe. The third thing is that as gaming companies become popular and been in India and all of them have and already are working outside India, they become targets for all kinds of nefarious, whether amateur hackers or companies or countries themselves, even in a political environment, for attacks, right? And it happens on a regular basis. So keeping ourselves secure, giving them the tools to keep them secure from attacks, and also some of the machine learning tools which are available now, which goes and checks the entire ecosystem that our customers are using on AWS and their own applications, right? Whether they have done the right things, whether they are in a secure position. So we provide those tools also and encourage our customers to use it. So Bhavin is a big customer of ours. He should know how we are doing.
Oh, absolutely. I was just telling Neeraj, and I'll share with you. I sleep peacefully at night because we are behind the AWS firewall. So we think security is obviously a very big part, and as Neeraj rightly pointed out, we're targets, and everyone is a target all the time, right? Especially when you have wallets and when you store real money, when you have information about players, and so. From that perspective, I actually agree with Neeraj that AWS does a lot of cutting-edge work to make sure that we're safe and we're able to sleep well at night. And thank you.
I think I've just got time for one more question, so I'll leave it to Bhavin here on telling us about where do you see the future for the gaming sector in India, right? I mean, there seems to be some ambiguity around regulation, right? There seems to be, I mean, the growth is amazing, but so are a few of the challenges, right? So how do you see this panning out?
So Brian, I think the future for gaming in India is very bright, right? Let me start by saying that. Let me also say that, and we have Mr. Manish here who's going to speak in a bit, dear friend, and we've worked together now for some time. The industry now is really coming together. Right? Some of us are spearheading that effort. Not to mention that the central government is also now taking an interest in regulating this space. Last week, Manisha and a few others had the good fortune of meeting with Mr. Rajiv Chandrasekhar, who's the Minister of State for the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. And they're looking at for games of skill, bringing the entire industry together to really help determine, okay, we want to offer games of skill, we want to promote this sector, what is the best way to do it, let's collaborate and make this happen. And so even the nation, the center, everyone is now understanding and realizing that gaming has a very, very bright potential, has a very bright future, that everyone is coming together. And I think that's very heartening to see, and it's really the best way forward for all of us.
Okay. Thanks, Bhavin. Thanks, Neeraj. And
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Neeraj.
The conclusion one can draw from you is that there are games of skill, but then doing a gaming startup is also a game of skill, I think.
That is true. Well put, Brian. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Forbes India presents AWS The Mavericks in association with Ivy Cap Ventures.